Y'all, I'm back and I want to say happy Veterans Day to anybody who has served. I just appreciate your service to our country. And today I am going to talk about how my military journey mirrors David's preparation as well. Now, I hadn't thought about this before I started this whole series about David, but David is very much a military commander, renowned for his fighting, of course, but also in service to his country as a king. He was a king and a warrior. And so there was a lot about David's life as just a military leader and just who he was. In fact, when David infamously got in trouble for sleeping with Bathsheba, it was because he was supposed to be at war, but he was at the house peeping somebody he wasn't supposed to bother, right? He really was supposed to be at the war. He was a commander. His army, his people, they depended on him. Now, I'm not sure why when David had that specific mess up and hiccup with Bathsheba, why he wasn't at war. I don't know what was going on with him at that moment. But again, David the warrior was supposed to be in the field. So he was out of place when he messed up with Bathsheba, which again brings me to my point about David today. David was a military leader. David was well respected. On my last video, I talked about how he ran up with them rocks, boop, boop, popped Goliath right in his forehead, right? And knocked him out, killed him, right? One hit a quitter. And so I'm going to continue along that same, with some on my lip. I don't know what's on my lip, but it's getting on my nerves. But I'm going to continue on that same vein today as we just keep on going with this whole series, right? And so forgive me once again, I will be taking some sips of my tea to make sure my throat is good. As you can see, I'm using my favorite mug, the Ember mug. It keeps it warm. It's great. I'm gonna have to plug it on because I'm on LTK, so I'm gonna have to pub this on my YouTube channel. It's a really great gift. I've had it for a couple of years and I love it, especially when the fall winter hits, because it's keeping my beverage warm. So yeah, I'll be patient with me as I get my voice together. So today I want to talk about my own personal military story first. Okay, y'all. So I'm a veteran. I served. I went to the Air Force and I struggled in basic training. Now, I've talked about this from several different perspectives, right? I talked about it in a way that you overcome, in a way that I was held back, how embarrassing it was. It was a lot. But what I had forgotten about and what God had me reflecting on recently was how I ended up volunteering to take the new recruits who had just come in. I would volunteer on Sundays to take them over to the chaplain services. So we had, of course, different chapels, different services, and they needed people that would just walk them over, sit with them while they were in service, and then just walk them back. I don't know how. I cannot remember how I got connected to do this. But what I do realize now is that I was getting a glimpse of where I was headed. I was not realizing it because at that time I was like 19, 20. I was probably 20. And so I was not looking at the clues. Baby, I was not reading the room, honey. I was distraught. I was held back in basic. I thought I was stuck forever, honey. I thought I was stuck. But what ended up happening was somehow, some way, I ended up being able to volunteer with them. Okay, let me just go and be real with you. I volunteered with them, which means I had to get up really super early. Like y'all, I had to be up at 4 something to get dressed, to get me some quick breakfast downstairs. So, you would all eat together. And it would be my cheat day. Okay, I was on a strict diet because I also had to lose weight in basic. Y'all, I would be down there 10 up them Pop-Tarts. This was when I would be eating some cereal, some Pop-Tarts, baby, because I missed junk food. Anyway, so I would get those. The new people that just came in. Of course, they were shaking. When you first get to basic, it shakes your whole world, your mindset. It just really is hard. So I would, go get them. We would eat breakfast, walk them over. I hadn't thought about this, but because I had been there a while and they were new, I maybe brought some comfort, especially because we were going to a chapel service. And so it wasn't your rigorous, somebody yelling at you, get in line. It wasn't a really strict thing. We did have to walk over in formation, but I wasn't like, hey, to get it together, fix it. It wasn't like that, right? It was a moment of respite. And so I would get them over there. Okay, here's what I would do. Go ahead and tell you. I would put them in the service. I had like a phone card in my shoe. I would sneak into the office of the like chaplain and I would call my dad on Sunday mornings because I could always call my daddy. My daddy was gonna be one thing, baby, up and ready to go be a deacon, lead Sunday school. He was an early riser. He passed away in 2020, but I tell my husband all the time, I miss my daddy because he was the only person I knew I could call super early and he wouldn't be mad. The only person, okay? Everybody else be like, don't call me before a certain time, child. Anyway, shout out, miss my daddy. But and so I would call my dad. Sometimes I would sit in the services, I would take vigorous notes. And I just wasn't realizing, like the clues were not clicking because later in my 30s, I ended up getting a master's in divinity, right? Whole time looked like I should have been trying to be a chaplain anyway, right? Whatever. But anyway, it was a very nice respite for myself as well as the troops, the little group I would take over. And I think I would walk over two different groups. I can't remember if I would do one or two. I think it was probably two. And then I would return back, of course, to my own unit. Another thing that happened to me while I was serving and getting held back and feeling like I would never get out of basic was in the evenings at night when it was lights out, people would come up to me and ask me for prayer. I can't tell you why. I did not advertise no beliefs in nothing. I did not say I wanted to pray for nobody. I do not think I'm no prayer warrior. I'm still not a prayer warrior like that. Baby, they were coming up to me. You hear me? Also should have been clue number two, but it wasn't. I didn't know why these folks was coming up to me. Now, would I pray? Yes. Now, maybe they saw me reading my Bible because in the dark, I would be there with like a flashlight, just reading the Psalms, really. I would be reading the Psalms. And so just trying to get my mindset right, keep my mind focused on God. Remember that God was the author, right, and the finisher of my whole journey. Reminding myself in those hard times, it was hard for me. It really ended up being mind over matter, but I'm just saying it was hard. So let me get back to my notes because I sit here and ramble all day because I am a talker. Anyway, so yeah, being held back felt humiliating, but walking those different groups over to chaplain services felt like I was able to contribute in a greater way. It was kind of redeeming for me. It was like, hey, I'm not getting it all the way right, but this one thing I do have, I can do this, right? So I was in service in that way, and I just didn't even realize it. Um, when I think about how David was tending the sheep, right, while his brother was in the army, I started connecting the fact that the hidden place is where leadership and leaders are formed. And so for me, it was I couldn't get this runtime down really well, and I had to just keep practicing and get my mind right. But in that hidden place, I was being formed as a leader. I was leading the new groups over the chaplain services. I was helping to bring comfort in that way. I was leading in prayer. Even, when I got to the end, I didn't realize this was the end, but one of the groups, the units I was in, the young lady, she came up to me and was like, God told me to tell you, you were here for other people. You were here because, and she just said a lot of stuff. And I was just looking at her like, girl, I was here for what? I was traumatized. What you talking about? I'm ready to go. What is you talking about? I'm stuck in basic HELL. What do you mean? What should have been another clue? Anyway, when you look back retrospectively, life is giving you so many clues about your past, but you be young, be like, la, 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 la. You don't always be paying attention to them clues. Them clues be going like, whoop. Anyway, so the hidden place is where your leadership is formed. Um, A takeaway is don't rush your becoming. If you are being held back or paused, you might just be in training for your moment to lead. Now, this is a big one. Training, oh my goodness, it does not always look like what we think. So back to the story about David that I read, I think it was 1 Samuel chapter 17, where David ends up, popping Goliath, killing him. But his training and what he quoted and the reason he wasn't afraid, is this I'm still on my lip? There you go. The reason he wasn't afraid was because he said, while I tended the sheep if a bear would approach me, let me go to the scripture because you know I messed this up. If a bear would run up and try to take one of those sheep, I would wrestle the bear. The bear did not get to take the sheep. And I think I said in the last video that the bear would have had a sheep snack, baby, because who David said when a lion would come up, David was choking out lions and bears and all kind of animals to make sure that the flock stayed flocking. You feel me? You feel me? So David ended up saying, I've been a shepherd tending a sheep for my father. Whenever a lion or bear came and took a lamb from the flock, I'd go after it, knock it down, and rescue the lamb. Baby, because you would have been eating lamb chops. Because who? If it turned on me, I'd grab it by the throat, wring its neck, and kill it. Lion or bear. It made no difference. I killed it. And I'll do the same to this Philistine pig who is taunting the troops of God alive. God, who delivered me from the teeth of the lion and the claws of the bear, will deliver me from the Philistine. And that's 1 Samuel 17 chapter and the 34th through the 37th verse. Just so you don't think I'm spewing stuff, I'm actually reading it. That's the Message version, though, so it's casual. Listen, David was being prepared. Because the way your girl would have been like, oh no, it's getting ate up. What I'm supposed to do, right? That's not what happened to David. David turned on some fierce warrior vibes, ran up, choking out bears, choking out lions. I'm on this because that was his preparation. He did not know it, I'm sure, but at that time, when he decided to do that, that later became why he wasn't afraid to run up on Goliath. And so I want to ask you right now, in the middle of me talking, what's a Goliath moment in your life? When you look back, you realize you had to overcome something and you were prepared, but it was because the preparation happened in a different season. I think running in basic training and trying to get that final run, the final run was like 3 miles and some change, but you had to run in formation. Okay, this is where it was, this is where I was struggling. In basic, you are put in formation and you have to stay in cadence with everyone. But the way the formation is formed is they put the tallest people and the most athletic people at the front. Your girl is like 5'1" on a good day. Okay, I'm gonna claim 5'2". I'm gonna claim 5'2", but I'm really 5'1". So whenever the formation happened, I was one of the last people on the very end. So the cadence and the pace is set automatically by the most athletic, the tallest. Everything was already stacked against the homie. You feel me? Like, I'm short, I'm not athletic at all. Like, I didn't play sports heavy. Listen. Whew. So that was the hard part. My stride, my cadence, it had to stay in line. So I had to practice, 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 practice. I will admit, before I went to basic, I should have practiced my run more. I'm not going to just say, that I shouldn't have. Let me go ahead and take some ownership. Anyway, what's your Goliath moment though, right? I had to learn how to also lead others at a time when things weren't going the greatest for me. And you know what? That is a skill set. That would be one of your soft skills where you learn emotional intelligence, where you learn empathy, right? Some people have it naturally. Some people have it and it gets cultivated in hard times. I would say I was always naturally gifted with empathy, but it definitely was cultivated because it's nothing like somebody asking me to pray for them while I'm stuck. Baby, who? Not me. What do you mean pray for you? Girl, don't you see me stuck right here, honey? I know you done heard about it. People be talking. I know y'all know I've been held back. That's not what came out my mouth. What came out of my mouth was, bow your head, give me your hands. Okay? Listen, you will be prepared to serve when it is tough. Now, that wasn't me chasing down lions and bears, but that was definitely a very, very hard time for me, right? And so realizing that was just preparation, right? My run became my Goliath. It wasn't just physical, right? But it was my faith that I needed. It was my mindset. And this is why I talk about cultivating self-confidence so much. My mindset had to shift and see me crossing the finish line. I had to stop thinking, oh my God, I'm short. I'm never going to get the run. No, I'm short and powerful, baby. I'm short and powerful. That mindset had to get right. But you guys, it was daunting initially. I was held back twice. So that put me, so each time it was 2 weeks. So that put me 4 weeks behind. Listen, but it was 4 weeks. I hate to admit it then, but now I realize it. 4 weeks of cultivation that I needed that has gone with me a lifetime. I won't even tell you any stories about that. Um, and so, have you? I'm gonna drop these, pin these in the comments. What's a moment in your life where being held back actually prepared you for something greater? Right. I want you to drop it in the comments. Journal that question if you don't want to share it. Some things are very personal. I'm gonna now take a moment to sip. Yeah, my tea's still warm. And this cup is awesome because it comes with an app. It tells you, like, my cup has 34% battery left. It wasn't fully charged. It was on like 70%. And then I like wanted to stay at 140 degrees. You can take that down a few degrees. You can take it up. Real nice. Anyway, um, so yeah, journal that question. What's a moment in your life where being held back actually prepared you for something greater? Right? Okay. So what was I talking about? I was walking over the different new units to take them on Sundays to chapel services because, of course, right? I would, then go back. My Sunday would continue. It would be regular, whatever, whatever. Okay. When I got ready to do the final run, the formation run, the run where the tallest person sets the cadence, and little Kim is in the back, honey, in the back on the corner, right? When I had to do that run, don't y'all know, one of the chaplains looked at me and said, Hunter, I'm going to do this run with you and I'm going to pray for you the whole time. I am praying for you. Not me with a scripture balled up in my hand, too, baby. When I say we needed this double prayer to get your girl through, it was crazy because I didn't even converse with the chaplains real hard or anything. I guess they just, people talk. So everybody knew I was held back. And I guess they just saw me bringing over these, new recruits to chapel services and just felt like sorry for me and compassion. Like, oh my God, look at Hunter. Hunter, that's my maiden name. And so, y'all, I could have broke down and cried when he said it, but I didn't because I needed all of that energy and those tears to get me through the run. Let's talk about staying hydrated, honey. Okay, I needed those tears. I wasn't gonna cry. I wanted to cry. When I finished, I cried happy tears because that meant I graduated and I went on to my training for I went into supply. So I went into my supply training. And so, yeah, but when I tell you, it was so traumatizing for me, but God had me there. There was purpose still in that moment. Um, God had somebody praying for me, somebody always praying for us, and we don't know it. But for somebody to just come up and be like, I'm praying for you, girl. I see you struggling. You are not alone. Okay. Don't make me, you are not alone. You are not alone. Mike. Okay. Not alone. Anyway, so he said he'd pray for me, and he did. I finished that run, right? Earned my place, got out of basic training, moved on to my actual training where I had other moments that I could talk about that were extremely hard because once I got to supply training, every week you had a test and you had to pass it. So you had to really focus, you had to buckle down. I was already a month behind. I was ready to go home, but I had to get through that next hurdle, right? In that, I had to form community. I had to study with a few people sometimes. I had to really pull it out. Maybe I should talk about that next. But listen, David's story today just made me think about the preparation one goes through when they serve in the military. Again, David's training wasn't the most formal, but it was effective, right? Because God knows how to train us. God knows what we need because God knows where we're going, right? Again, I was not reading the clues, honey. Okay. I was just trying to get out of there. Sometimes when you're going through things, you are not realizing all of the gems that are being dropped. You just like trying to, like, you go into survival mode. So you like, I'm just trying to get out of this to get to the next thing. So I think that's where I was. I was definitely in survival mode, which is why I talk a lot about healing, right? Because when you come out of survival mode, even though you're going to always go through different things, different challenges, when you can come up for air, come out of survival mode, maybe you can see the lesson in it quicker. Or maybe you can calmly get through it and not make your body stay locked into fight or flight. It's just so many reasons I talk about this, but a lot of it is because I have been there needing to overcome something, looking like a failure, baby, not for all the world to see, honey. Like, not just a private failure where you can keep it to yourself. Like, no, my stories look like they were thrust into like the open stage where everybody was like, oh, like held back, right? In basic, people knew. Didn't graduate on time. That was a whole thing. People knew. So, yeah, it can be really tough. The formation that you have to go through in the public spotlight as well, or in public, just the people you know, still, that can feel very public, right? Especially when people start putting their mouths on you. They start trying to stamp the word failure on you. Oh, she didn't finish. She didn't do this, blah, 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 blah. You start like over allowing it to stick in some cases. You're not supposed to. People's opinion of you, that's not your business. It's not supposed to stick. But especially when you're young, you can have those moments where you're like, "Ooh, are they correct about me?" No, they're not. This is a moment. But when you're young, or even if you're older, but you just had so many people over the years say things over you that you just have not fully pushed it all off, it can still stick. It can still be daunting. That's nowhere in my notes. I don't even know why I'm talking about that. Anyway, and so looking at David's journey, looking at your own life, some Goliaths that you may have had to handle, something that you may have had to overcome, you can now go back to the book of Psalms and pull a Psalm 23. Like I said, probably the most famous psalm, right? Maybe one of the most famous Bible verses. This is the message version, so it's not going to sound like it normally does. Psalm 23. God, my shepherd, I don't need a thing. You have bedded me down in lush meadows. You find me quiet pools to drink from. True to your word, you let me catch my breath and send me in the right direction. When I say God will let you catch your breath, but I'm going to keep reading. Even when the way goes through Death Valley, I'm not afraid when you walk at my side. Your trusty shepherd's crook makes me feel secure. You serve me a 6-course dinner right in front of my enemies. You revive my drooping head. My cup brims with blessing. Your beauty and love chase after me every day of my life. I'm back home in the house of God for the rest of my life. Mm, mm, mm. Woo! And that is where I'm going to end today. Listen, true to your word, you let me catch my breath. That's how I felt when I was walking those different new units to over to like go to chaplain service. I felt like God was letting me catch my breath because I was catching something else, honey. So catching my breath is what was needed. And anyway, I'm gonna definitely drop in to the comments, like pin the comment on the question about times in your life when you've had a Goliath. I may come up with another question like, has there been a time when you can identify that even in the midst of hardship, struggle, hey, you messing up, baby, and everybody see you. Does God have you identified a time, even in that, where God helped you catch your breath and gave you some kind of respite, a moment of peace, a moment away? Listen, if you look at your life and think hard enough, you will be able to identify it. I appreciate you for listening to me today. That is the next installment. I didn't even plan this one. This was not in my original like notes for this David series because I was just thinking about it from one dimension, but it's Veterans Day. And so listen, happy Veterans Day to all the people that served, and I hope you have a great day.